Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Pittoni. I've been a resident for over 50 years, and for 30 of those years, we've talked about St. Paul's. On and on. But I have three questions. One question is, many years ago, it was discussed the possibility of having it as a village hall. And I have not heard anything along that same line, but it was put aside many years ago, and I'm not sure why, and I haven't heard anything. So what is the possibility of making this structure Village Hall?
I always enjoy questions from John Pittoni. The issue on Village Hall, there are two hurdles in Parkland. One says public purpose, and that's generally been viewed to be recreational things that you would do in a park, and the other is municipal use. So at some time, there was a suggestion that Village Hall be moved here. If that's one of the suggestions that you are going to make, John, we will take that under consideration and evaluate it and run it down, see if that's something that the village would like to do and if it's legally permitted.
No, John, as I understand it, what could have been done in 1997, in 2001, as that would be viewed as appropriate municipal use or public use, in 2005, with the parkland designation, got eliminated without going to Albany. So things such as fire departments, police stations, things of that nature, things that would have been appropriate public use or municipal use before it was declared parkland are no longer on the table.
But it was declared, let me go right to the issue. It was declared parkland at the request of Mayor Miller and the Board of Trustees. And so the point is, so many of the things that you're talking about as a committee are limited by a parkland designation.
Absolutely.
So why can't the trustees, including the mayor and the trustees,
unfortunately,
go back and make an application to the legislature to designate this building as non-parkland? It seems very simple.
I think that what you're saying is, could we go to Albany and have legislation passed, home rule legislation, that would allow us to use it for what would be viewed as non-parkland uses?
Yeah.
I don't think that you can go to Albany and get a bill that would say no longer parkland. What it would be a bill that would carve out this from the parkland and allow you to use it in some different fashion than would be appropriate under parkland designation. But right now, as I said, Frank's committee, the mayor and everyone, we're trying to develop programs, and I'm just trying to keep the guardrails out. They're trying to develop programs that can be done independent of having to go to Albany.
Okay. One last point. I'm not sure how many people read Richard Bankowski's letter to the editor last weekend, which I thought was very, very appropriate. Once we figure out what the cost of the different things we're talking about, that before we even do that, to figure out how it's going to be paid for, he suggested people foundations, money, because he doesn't think it's fair that the village residents should pay for a building which has limited use. I mean, even you had the skylight with flowers and everything else.
Well,
but the point is, this is something which I think that you should consider. Just coming up with a price somewhere, and then designate a subcommittee to figure out how it's going to be paid for. Nothing, just whether it's donations, whether it's federal money. If the price is $1.5 million, $1.2 million, $500 million, whatever the price is,
right.
Let the village consider that. And as Mr. Bankowski had mentioned, it's the way we should go. I just make that point and ask you to consider it. Thank you.
Just before you sit down, there is a subcommittee on finance. And as I think both Frank and the mayor have explained, the burden that would be placed on the taxpayer, the residents of Garden City, we're acutely aware of that, and we're paying attention to it. So, and there is a committee. So it's not that that's going to be an afterthought.
We agree.
Okay.
Brian? Let me introduce Ryan Mulrooney, Chair of the Finance Subcommittee.
Good evening, everyone. I'll just start out. We do have a finance committee, finance and budget committee, and we've already met several times, probably over a half dozen times. And before I start, I've been a resident for a better part of 40 years. I've been following this since I was in high school, in Garden City High School. I get the apprehension of the people saying, you know, oh my God, they're going to knock it down. And I get the apprehension of the people saying, oh my God, I'm going to get taxed out of town. I get it. When I was named the head of the subcommittee for finance, I've done my best to remove myself from those two sides. And all I really want to do is, once we have a final program for reuse, and once we have a final program and scope of a demolition, is get the finances for each, the cost of each, the cost of what it will cost to refurbish, demolish, the operating and maintenance cost of each proposal, go through them, verify them, be transparent with them, and not only will we have a list of this is what it costs to do, this is what it costs to maintain and operate, A and B, and here's what you get, but what I really want to do is make it comprehensible to the average resident. What does it cost me per year? What does it cost me per year to demolish it, and what do I get? And what does it cost me a year to refurbish it, and what do I get? And then you make that decision. We're not going to be giving a recommendation. You're giving us the recommendation when you vote. So that's how I see our role. And our meetings, once we get the final proposals, we'll have a town hall that focuses on finance, and we'll be taking questions on finance. Our job is to make sure, the best of our ability, that the numbers that we get are accurate, and we have to determine the best way to finance them. The question is, grants, things like that, that's going to depend on what's there. You know, grants will be given depending on what the purposes are. So that's something to keep in consideration, you know, when you give your feedback.